Ladies and gentlemen, in a world that often glorifies self-sacrifice, overextension, and constant output, many people have been taught, directly or indirectly, that prioritizing themselves is selfish or spiritually weak. Yet nothing could be further from the truth. The principle of caring for yourself first is not rooted in ego, but in wisdom. It is a principle of divine order, not indulgence. When you take care of your mind, body, and spirit, you are honoring the very vessel through which your purpose flows. You are not neglecting your responsibilities. You are preparing yourself to carry them with strength, clarity, and grace. From a young age, many of us are taught that goodness means putting others first, that to love is to give endlessly, and that to serve is to sacrifice. While these values are deeply rooted in moral and religious teachings, there is often a misinterpretation that true spiritual living demands self-neglect. This idea, although well-intentioned, is not only unsustainable but also out of alignment with the deeper spiritual truth that your life, your body, your mind, and your emotional state are sacred responsibilities. They are not burdens to bear, but divine gifts to steward. Taking care of yourself is not selfish. It is foundational. When we consider spiritual growth and responsibility, we often imagine how we can be of use to others. But how can you possibly be a light to others when your own flame is flickering? How can you lead, serve, or uplift when your spirit is heavy, your body is tired, and your mind is scattered? True responsibility begins not in the world outside of you, but in the world within you. This is where spiritual maturity begins, in the daily discipline of caring for the vessel you inhabit. One of the most powerful truths that often goes unspoken is this: your physical health is a spiritual duty. There is no virtue in neglecting sleep, overworking yourself to exhaustion, or ignoring your body's needs in the name of productivity or even religious service. In fact, it is irresponsible. Your body is the instrument through which you fulfill your purpose. When you treat it poorly, you compromise your clarity, your energy, and your ability to function at your highest potential. If you truly believe that your life has meaning and that you are here for a reason, then it follows that your health and well-being deserve careful attention. Equally important is mental and emotional care. Many people carry emotional wounds that go unattended for years. They push through, suppress, or minimize what they feel in order to meet the expectations of others. However, just as untreated physical injuries worsen over time, so do emotional ones, and here lies a truth that many overlook. Unhealed people unintentionally hurt others. The burden of your emotional neglect doesn't stay with you. It spills over into your relationships, your decisions, and your responses. Self-responsibility means becoming aware of your inner landscape, facing your emotional truths, and seeking healing not only for your own sake, but for the well-being of those around you. This is not to say you must be perfect or fully healed to help others. But it does mean you cannot ignore your inner life and expect to be spiritually effective. You must regularly ask yourself, am I nourishing my mind with truth and peace, or am I letting fear and insecurity guide me? Am I reacting to life from old wounds, or am I responding from a place of inner stability? These are mature questions, and maturity is deeply spiritual. Moreover, the concept of balance is central to this understanding. It is easy to believe that being good means saying yes to every request, being available to everyone, and prioritizing everyone else's needs over your own. But if you say yes to everything, you are actually saying no to many essential things, like rest, reflection, growth, and even prayer. Constant giving without renewal leads to resentment, fatigue, and spiritual dryness. Balance means understanding that your time, your energy, and your focus are not infinite. They must be directed wisely and with intention. Boundaries, often misunderstood as selfishness, are actually tools of self-respect. They say, I know what I need in order to thrive, and I will not compromise it recklessly. They also say, I value my time, my energy, and my peace, and I choose to protect them so I can show up fully for what matters most. Setting boundaries is not a rejection of others. It's a commitment to showing up as your best self for them and for you. Another dimension of self-responsibility is personal development. To neglect your talents, your intellect, and your potential is to waste the resources that have been uniquely given to you. Investing in your growth through education, creativity, reflection, and discipline is not vanity. It is reverence. It is saying, I honor the life I have been given, and I choose to cultivate it with care and excellence. Your development is not only for your benefit, it also becomes a gift to others. When you are well informed, emotionally grounded, and spiritually centered, you bring value to every space you enter. Even the way you carry yourself physically, the way you dress, speak, and move, can be an expression of self-responsibility. You don't need to be extravagant or rigid, but there is power in presenting yourself with dignity and composure. It communicates that you care not only about how others perceive you, but about the role you play in the world. It says, I take myself seriously enough to show up with intention. And finally, it's important to understand that self-responsibility is not about control, it's about stewardship. You are not responsible for everything that happens to you, but you are responsible for how you respond. Life will present difficulties, disappointments, and uncertainties, but how you care for yourself through those seasons, how you protect your peace, seek guidance, and nurture your spirit, determines whether those experiences refine you or ruin you. When you take care of yourself first, you position yourself to live with integrity, clarity, and strength. You no longer operate from desperation or obligation, but from overflow. You serve not because you are trying to prove something, but because you are full enough to give. That is the kind of service that changes lives. Not martyrdom, but maturity, not chaos, but calm, not burnout, but balance. In the end, spiritual responsibility begins with the courage to say, I matter. My well-being is not a side project. It is the foundation, and when I take care of myself, I honor the life I've been given. From this place of wholeness, I can be of true service, not as a sacrifice, but as a source. There is a persistent and often romanticized belief in many cultures that self-sacrifice is the highest form of love and spiritual devotion. The idea is widespread: to give until there is nothing left, to stretch yourself thin for the sake of others, and to endure silently while placing everyone else's needs above your own. This is portrayed as noble, generous, and even divine. However, this narrative, when examined with wisdom and maturity, reveals itself as deeply flawed and harmful, not only to the individual, but to everyone around them. There is nothing virtuous about self-neglect. In fact, it is a silent destroyer of potential, peace, and purpose. When you ignore your physical needs, push past your emotional limits, and disregard your mental and spiritual well-being, you do not serve others more effectively. You simply diminish your own light. And when that happens, you slowly become disconnected from the very essence of who you are meant to be. One of the most dangerous misconceptions about self-neglect is that it earns love or approval. Many people, especially those with nurturing tendencies, believe that giving endlessly makes them more worthy, more valuable, or more needed. But this mindset is rooted in insecurity, not strength. True love, whether from people or from the divine, does not require that you erase yourself. It does not ask you to be exhausted, depleted, or invisible. If anything, it encourages you to be whole, to thrive, and to contribute from a place of fullness. When you consistently put yourself last, you are sending a powerful message to yourself and to the world that your needs, your energy, and your well-being are not important. Over time, this leads to burnout, emotional imbalance, physical fatigue, and spiritual emptiness. These are not side effects, they are direct consequences, and the danger is not just in the physical toll, it's in how self-neglect begins to shape your identity. You start to believe that your worth is tied to how much you can endure. You start to confuse exhaustion with productivity and martyrdom with love. This way of living is unsustainable. You may be able to carry on for a season, perhaps even for years, but eventually your mind and body will begin to protest. Anxiety, resentment, illness, or even depression begin to take root in subtle ways. And what's worse is that the very people you tried so hard to care for may not even notice how much you've depleted yourself in the process. Why? Because people often treat you the way you treat yourself. If you show up to the world tired, scattered, and frazzled, that becomes the standard, and it teaches others to expect that version of you, forever giving, never receiving. It is essential to understand that boundaries are not barriers to love. They are the framework that makes healthy, sustainable love possible. Saying no when you are overwhelmed, taking a break when you are tired, and choosing rest over constant doing are not acts of weakness. They are acts of strength, of discernment, and of self-respect. By preserving your energy, you are not being selfish, you are being wise. You are ensuring that when you do give, it comes from a place of clarity and intention, not obligation and depletion. Another dimension to consider is how self-neglect affects your relationships. When you chronically ignore your needs, you may begin to feel unappreciated, overlooked, or even resentful toward those you are trying to help. You may wonder why others do not offer the same care and sacrifice in return, but relationships cannot be built on unspoken expectations or silent suffering. They require honesty, transparency, and mutual respect. And that begins with you being honest about your own limits and needs. When you take care of yourself, you model to others what is acceptable, what is healthy, and what is sustainable. You become an example, not of perfection, but of balance. You show that it is possible to be kind and firm, giving and discerning, available and guarded when needed. This kind of living does not repel people. It attracts the right kind of people, people who respect your time, value your energy, and understand your boundaries. In professional environments, self-neglect is often mistaken for dedication. The one who stays late, never complains, and takes on extra work is praised as committed and loyal, but in reality, this behavior is often driven by fear, the fear of being seen as replaceable, unworthy, or not enough. And over time, the very system that benefits from your overextension may fail to protect you when your health or performance declines. Loyalty in this context must begin with loyalty to yourself. If you do not advocate for your own well-being, no one else will do it for you. There is a crucial difference between temporary sacrifice and chronic self-neglect. Life will require moments of deep effort and giving, especially when you're raising children, supporting a loved one, or navigating a challenging career phase. But these moments must be balanced with seasons of restoration. Just as fields are left to rest so they can remain fertile, you too must step away, regroup, and restore. This is not laziness, it is strategy. It ensures longevity and sustained impact. Culturally, many women are especially vulnerable to the trap of self-neglect. Conditioned to be caretakers, many women grow up internalizing the belief that their worth lies in how much they can do for others. But true femininity, true strength, is not about martyrdom. It is about radiance, and radiance comes from within. It cannot be faked, and it cannot be sustained by someone who is running on empty. A woman who is well rested, well fed, emotionally regulated, and spiritually anchored walks into a room with a quiet power. She doesn't have to over explain or overextend. Her presence speaks for itself. In the same way, men too are often taught to suppress emotion, push through pain, and wear stoicism like armor. But this only leads to emotional detachment, internalized stress, and broken communication. Emotional and physical self-care is not feminine, it is human, it is wise, it is necessary, and it is your responsibility. The most spiritual thing you can do sometimes is to sit still, to breathe, to eat a nourishing meal, to turn off your phone, to walk outside and reconnect with your breath. These simple acts are not indulgences. They are declarations. They say, I matter. I am not a machine. I am not here just to perform. I am here to live, and in living well, I serve others better, love deeper, and lead more effectively. Ultimately, when you stop glorifying self-neglect, you reclaim your power. You remember that being good does not mean being absent from your own life. It means being present with yourself, with your needs, and with your truth. From that place, you can build a life that is not only productive but deeply fulfilling, and that, in itself, honors the divine within you. One of the most vital principles to understand when striving to live a balanced and impactful life is this: you cannot give what you do not have. No matter how generous, intentioned, or spiritually grounded you are, if your own internal resources are depleted, your ability to give meaningfully and sustainably will eventually collapse. This is not philosophy, it is basic human reality. Just as a lamp cannot offer light without oil, or a well cannot offer water once it runs dry, you cannot serve from emptiness, and pretending otherwise only delays the inevitable exhaustion and emotional disconnection that follow. Many people, especially those with strong values of service, community, or faith, struggle with this concept. They fear that focusing on themselves is selfish, that prioritizing their health, peace, or needs is indulgent or egotistical. But nothing could be further from the truth. Filling your own cup is not about vanity. It's about responsibility. It is your duty to maintain your inner state so that you can be a source of light, wisdom, and presence in the lives of others. When your cup is full, you don't just offer scraps of attention. You offer overflow, and that overflow is what blesses others, not your depletion. Many people confuse giving with self-erasure. They believe that to be truly kind, they must always say yes, always show up, and always be available, no matter their own condition. But this way of living leads to resentment, fatigue, and spiritual dryness. It's like trying to carry others across a river while you're drowning yourself. You must first stabilize, find your footing, and breathe. Then, and only then, can you help others with grace and effectiveness. Think about how an airplane safety briefing instructs you to secure your own oxygen mask before helping others. This is not because you matter more. It's because without your oxygen, you won't have the capacity to assist anyone else. The principle is the same in life. If you do not attend to your physical, emotional, and spiritual health first, your relationships, work, and service will suffer not from lack of love, but from lack of capacity. Caring for yourself is not just about survival. It's about being able to thrive and, in doing so, elevate those around you. A well-nourished person, someone who has taken time to rest, to reflect, to heal, brings a different kind of energy into a room. They are not frantic, reactive, or bitter. They are present, they listen deeply, they respond thoughtfully, they create calm instead of chaos. This energy is contagious, and it transforms environments. But it is only possible when your inner world is being cared for consistently and deliberately. Self-care, then, is not occasional. It's not a luxury reserved for vacations or weekend retreats. It is a daily discipline. It's in how you wake up and how you go to sleep. It's in what you allow into your mind through your conversations, your social media, your habits. It's in the choices you make about food, movement, rest, and boundaries. These choices accumulate, and over time, they define the state of your inner cup. One of the most overlooked aspects of this principle is emotional regulation. When you are empty inside, overwhelmed, tired, or emotionally neglected, you become more easily triggered, less patient, and more reactive. Small things feel big, simple requests feel like burdens, and instead of giving from a place of calm, you give with a hidden cost, resentment. You may still perform the task, offer the help, or give the advice, but the spirit in which you give is tainted. That's not generosity, that's obligation, and people feel the difference even if it's unspoken. On the other hand, when you are centered and emotionally nourished, you have the space to choose your responses rather than be driven by them. You can give freely without needing validation or applause. You can serve from love, not from pressure. This is the kind of giving that uplifts both the giver and the receiver. It is sustainable and it builds trust and joy in your relationships. People who learn to keep their cup full are not just more effective, they are more magnetic. There's something deeply attractive about someone who takes care of themselves, not in a superficial, performance-based way, but in a grounded, confident, inwardly calm manner. This kind of person naturally becomes a source of wisdom, peace, and even authority. Why? Because their presence signals balance. It signals that they are not desperate for approval or drained from overextension. They walk in their own rhythm, and others respect that rhythm. This doesn't mean life will never ask you to stretch or sacrifice. Of course, it will. There will be seasons when you are called to give more than you receive, to support a sick loved one, to guide someone through crisis, or to pour your energy into a meaningful project. But those seasons must be counterbalanced with recovery. You cannot live your entire life in output mode. There must be time for input. Rest is not laziness. Restoration is not weakness. They are part of the cycle of sustainable excellence. Many people wait for permission to care for themselves. They wait for someone to notice how tired they are, how overwhelmed they feel, how much they've been carrying. But maturity is realizing that no one is coming to rescue you. You must become the guardian of your own well-being. You must notice your energy levels, your mood, your tension. You must take initiative, and when you do, you begin to live from choice rather than compulsion. You also begin to give without losing yourself. You give because you want to, not because you have to. You say yes when it aligns with your energy and your truth. You say no without guilt. You understand that your value is not in how much you sacrifice, but in how intentionally you live. And that shift changes everything. In this way, the full cup becomes a metaphor for integrity. When you keep your cup full, you are whole. You are honest about your limits. You are committed to your growth. You are faithful to your own life, and in doing so, you become someone others can rely on, not because you abandon yourself, but because you have learned to stay grounded within yourself. There is beauty in overflow. When you are emotionally and spiritually nourished, you smile more easily. You listen more attentively. You forgive more quickly. Your energy becomes lighter. People feel safe around you, not because you never struggle, but because your presence communicates something essential. I've done the work to be here, and I'm here fully. So, take the time, fill your cup, not once, but daily. Read things that inspire you. Eat food that strengthens you. Surround yourself with people who uplift you. Sleep deeply, move your body, say no when you need to, be honest about what you feel. And remember that the most powerful gift you can give to the world is not your exhaustion. It's your vitality. There comes a point in every person's growth where they realize that their energy is their most valuable currency. It is not time nor even money that defines the quality of your life. It is the state of your energy, how you feel when you wake up, how much clarity you bring into your decisions, how steady you remain under pressure. These are all determined by your ability to protect and cultivate your inner environment. And the truth is, no one else will do this for you. You are the gatekeeper of your own peace. You are the one responsible for what enters, what stays, and what must be released from your mental, emotional, and spiritual space. Guarding your energy does not mean shutting yourself off from the world. It does not mean becoming rigid or inaccessible. It means learning the delicate art of discernment, of knowing what aligns with your well-being and what disrupts it. It means making conscious choices about the conversations you engage in, the people you surround yourself with, the media you consume, and the environments you expose yourself to. Everything you allow into your life has a frequency, and over time, that frequency shapes your emotional tone, your outlook, and even your physical health. Peace is not found, it is created. It is cultivated moment by moment, decision by decision. It grows when you say no to unnecessary drama. It strengthens when you distance yourself from people who drain your spirit. It deepens when you stop over-explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. Guarding your peace is not an act of selfishness, it is an act of deep wisdom. Because when your inner world is calm and clear, you move through life with strength. You make better choices, you love more freely, you forgive with ease. But when your energy is scattered and your peace disturbed, everything feels heavier, more chaotic, more reactive. This responsibility cannot be outsourced. No one else can determine how much rest you need, how much stimulation is too much, or how many emotional demands are overwhelming you. You must learn to check in with yourself. You must become fluent in your own signals. Your body will whisper to you through fatigue, tension, or restlessness. Your emotions will signal imbalance through irritation, sadness, or apathy. Your spirit will become quiet when you've strayed too far from alignment. These signs are not to be ignored or numbed. They are invitations. They are reminders that something needs attention, that something needs to shift. In a world that constantly pushes for more productivity, more connection, more exposure, choosing to guard your energy may feel counter-cultural. You may be judged for being too private, too picky, or too distant, but do not let shallow opinions pull you away from deep truths. Not everyone is entitled to your time. Not every invitation is meant to be accepted. Not every trend deserves your attention. Maturity is learning the difference between what is urgent and what is important. It's learning to say no without apology. It's being comfortable with silence, solitude, and simplicity. One of the most overlooked areas where energy is lost is through emotional entanglement. When you take on other people's problems as your own, when you constantly try to fix, rescue, or manage the emotions of others, you begin to bleed energy. Of course, compassion and support are vital parts of any healthy relationship, but there is a boundary between support and self-sacrifice. There is a limit to how much emotional labor you can do on someone else's behalf. And if that limit is crossed too often, resentment builds, fatigue sets in, and your inner light begins to flicker. This is why protecting your peace also means practicing emotional detachment, not in a cold or dismissive way, but in a conscious and healthy way. You can care deeply without carrying everything. You can love without losing yourself. You can be present without being consumed. Detachment is not about apathy. It is about clarity. It is the ability to observe without absorbing, to witness without drowning. This skill is essential if you are to remain whole and grounded in a world that thrives on urgency and overstimulation. Another dimension to this principle is recognizing that some relationships, patterns, and environments will no longer fit the version of you that is healing, growing, and elevating. And when that happens, you must be willing to let go. Letting go is not a failure, it is an act of trust. Trust that you are worthy of environments that support your growth, not suppress it. Trust that your energy deserves to be protected, not exploited. Trust that your peace is a sacred space, not a battleground for validation, control, or unresolved wounds. The process of guarding your peace often requires courage. It means facing difficult truths. It may mean removing yourself from toxic dynamics, saying goodbye to people who cannot meet you where you are, or walking away from roles that no longer honor your well-being. These choices are not always easy. They may be misunderstood, but the deeper you go into self-awareness, the more clearly you see that peace is not optional. It is foundational. Without it, even success tastes bitter, even love becomes complicated. Even rest feels incomplete. There is also a profound connection between guarding your energy and developing inner confidence. When you stop chasing validation from people, when you stop explaining your boundaries in hopes of being understood, when you begin to prioritize how you feel over how you are perceived, you reclaim your power. You no longer give your energy to unworthy battles. You no longer shrink to fit into spaces that don't honor you. You stand taller, speak softer, and move more intentionally. That kind of confidence is quiet, but it is unshakable. Guarding your peace does not mean eliminating all discomfort or challenge. Growth itself can be uncomfortable, but it does mean choosing your discomfort wisely. There is a difference between the discomfort of expanding into a better version of yourself and the discomfort of being drained by people or environments that suppress your evolution. One leads to empowerment, the other leads to erosion, and the choice between the two is always yours. In time, you will discover that your peace is not just about feeling calm, it is about being aligned. It is about living in harmony with your values, your rhythms, and your inner truth. It is about being able to sit with yourself and feel at home. It is about creating a life that is not just impressive to others but meaningful to you. This is the true essence of self-leadership. When you accept responsibility for your energy and peace, you no longer wait for life to calm down or people to change. You create the conditions you need, you cultivate the spaces that nourish you, you make the hard choices because you know what's at stake. You know that your clarity, your creativity, your capacity to love and lead all depend on this inner equilibrium. And when you live from that place, you do not just survive, you rise. You rise with strength, with softness, with certainty. And from that place, you bless others, not from pressure, but from presence, not from scarcity, but from overflow. At the heart of it all, the message is simple yet profound. Your life, your purpose, and your impact begin with you. You are the vessel through which every act of love, wisdom, service, and strength flows. If that vessel is neglected, if your body is weary, your mind is crowded, and your spirit is disconnected, then no matter how noble your intentions, your efforts will be strained and unsustainable. This is why it is not only acceptable but essential to take care of yourself first. Taking care of yourself is not an act of rebellion against service or faith. It is an act of alignment with it. You were not created to live in constant exhaustion, emotional debt, or spiritual confusion. You were created with a design that requires rhythm, restoration, and reflection. You were designed to pour out, yes, but only after you've been filled. Let go of the idea that you must earn rest, that you must justify your boundaries, or that you must constantly prove your worth through sacrifice. Begin to honor yourself as the source, not the byproduct, of the peace and power you wish to bring into the world. Guard your energy as you would guard something sacred, because it is. Guard your peace like a treasure, because it defines the atmosphere of your entire life. And remember, When you care for yourself first, the version of you that shows up for others is stronger, wiser, kinder, and infinitely more effective. You give not from pressure, but from overflow. You lead not from ego, but from integrity. And you love not from emptiness, but from wholeness. That is the kind of presence the world needs now more than ever, and it begins with you.